All right, boys, back with another project on the Taco. So I've already actually started it, but what it is actually going to be a switch panel. So MicTuning, MIC Tuning, they sent me this switch panel. It's an 8-gang panel. So here's the actual panel. So this is going to mount inside the truck. This is going to go under the hood, and then this is just all the hardware and the wiring and everything. I got a bunch of stickers, and then I got a bunch of labels for the panel. So as I wire things to the panel, I can just customize it with these and label everything so we know what's what. So my issue with the switch panel for one of these trucks has been the ones that I really like the locations of on the inside are just really expensive. VoSwitch makes a really nice one that goes, as you can see, I already kind of started here, but VoSwitch has one that goes here that looks awesome. And then Switch Pro makes a really nice one, but they're just very expensive, and I just really didn't need the extra features on those. So all I'm going to do is take that box that came with the, that's where all the wiring goes to actually distribute everything. I already mounted this bracket here, so this is just drilled right into the side of the engine bay. I had to take a piece of plastic trim off here to get there. I already ran the wire for what's going to be the first accessory for the camper or for the switch panel. And that is going to be these amber chase lights. So these are actually going to go on the camper. I'm going to have to punch a big old hole through the back of the camper. And these are just going to sit flush mount in there. So I think that'll be really nice. We're going up to the North Main woods soon. So it's super dusty up there when you got a bunch of trucks driving in a row. So it'll be nice to have some lighting on the rear of the truck to kind of illuminate through the dust. And then I'm thinking if they're not too bright, which they shouldn't be, they might be some good lights to have just at camp. So these are going to be really cool. I'm excited about these. I've had these in the box for like 2 years and just never wired them up. So it'll be good to finally get these out of the shop. But yeah, so all I did was I ran the wiring for that. All the wiring that goes into the camper comes through this passenger or driver's side taillight. So that gets wired up into here, which goes behind the panel and then up to the top. This is all hollow along the edge of the tent here. So it's really easy to run wires through these things. I got to button up some wiring underneath the truck to make sure everything's clean and just tightened up. And then I'm going to get started on mounting the distribution block, I guess you could call it. I don't really know what this thing's called. And then I'll show you what I'm thinking for the actual panel. So I wanted to do something a little bit differently with this panel. There's other brands that will fit. You can actually buy a piece that replaces this factory piece, and then this will actually just sit nice and flush inside that piece. No one makes a kit for this brand. It's a little bit larger than some of the other ones on the market. The size is just a little bit different. So I think what I'm going to end up doing, honestly, I think it's going to work great. There are these little mounting holes in the back with threads. I think all I'm going to do, I already kind of started. I'm going to pop this whole thing off, and then from the back of this piece, just punch some holes through it to feed into those. And then the wire, I like that you can actually run the wire from the back so that it's flush on the bottom so you don't have any wiring anywhere. I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to just punch a hole through the back there, and this is just going to sit just like that. And it almost covers, I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It overhangs a little bit more than I would like it to. Truthfully, I don't even use these switches anymore. This is for a light that I can't see anymore because of the camper. This is for an outlet that's covered, and this is for the most pointless feature that comes with these trucks, which is that auto high beam thing. It never works right. So those buttons never get interacted with at all. So even if this is a little bit in the way, I think it's going to be not a problem at all because these are pointless. One thing that I really like about this out of the box is that it feels really heavy. It's actually all aluminum, and I like the feedback you get from these buttons. They're very tactile. They make a nice loud sound when you press them. I don't like touchscreen. I really don't. And anything that I'm controlling accessories on the outside of the truck, lighting, or if I had power going to the winch or anything like that, I don't like touchscreen buttons. I like manual buttons. I like being able to hear a good click. I like knowing that I engage something. I know that like nothing has to load. It's instantaneous. It works. I'll kind of go through, I mean, there's a million videos out there talking about these things, how they actually function. Pretty much, honestly, it's just I needed buttons to turn things on. I don't need any crazy Wi-Fi capabilities or anything like that. This thing comes with a remote. They actually make a wireless version of this, but this one comes with the remote. So I can control this panel from afar with this remote. Honestly, I don't even see myself using this too often, but it might be useful if I have some exterior lighting on the camper that I would actually be using at camp when I'm not driving. It might be kind of nice. So maybe this can live in the back of the camper somewhere, but we'll just see. This has a ton of different options for what you can mount to it. So I really only have those chase lights so far, but the biggest reason I haven't really gotten any more exterior lighting on this truck is because I haven't had a switch panel. So I'm trying to get some ditch lights and some more fog lights, and you really don't have to go crazy. I'm not trying to spend $1 million on lighting. I really don't need it too much, but the chase lights will be nice. Like I said, it's good when you're with a group of people and you're following one another, because that dust gets insane, especially where we're going up in Maine. So it'll be nice to have a little bit of visibility when it's super dusty, and should double as a little light when you're setting up at camp. So like I said, I already ran the wiring for those lights. I didn't need to show that. It just goes all the way down, follows the factory harness all the way to the tail light. This is the bracket that came with the MicTuning kit. I just threw 2 bolts through there. That's super solid. There's not a great place to mount this in here. Some people will mount it on top of the fuse box, the factory fuse panel, but I just didn't want to get in the way of that. This is seemingly out of the way if I ever need to access this, even when there's going to be wiring and stuff coming out of the side of that box. I think this will do a good job of spacing it away from the fuse panel there. So this should be good. I'm hoping to get that factory trim piece back in just because, but we'll see when we get there. So this actually might work out better than I expected it to. I actually just removed this whole cubby. There's 4 screws, just teeny little screws holding it in from the back. So I don't even need to cut into that or do anything. The mounting holes are on the other side of this opening. So I'm thinking I can just kind of finagle it in and it'll sit in there like that. I'll just punch some holes. I'll just put a piece of tape across and mark these holes so I know where to drill. And then I'll just send some holes through this, because I think that's all it's going to take. There's kind of a lot of stuff back there, so I'm going to have to maneuver. Hopefully it's kind of in between all these tabs. But that might work perfectly. All right, it actually seemed easier to just unclip this. All I did was undo all of the connectors on the back and then pop it straight out. All right, so this is where we're at. I did have to modify this pretty good, and I don't even know if this is gonna pop back in, because it sticks up a little bit. So I did need longer screws. I happen to have some longer screws, so I apologize. I don't know what size these are. I recommend, if you're gonna go this route, just take these little black screws that the kit comes with and go to Home Depot and size them up to something else that's a little bit longer. The issue that I was having is that there's this channel in there that's supposed to accept this mounting bracket that I don't need, that I was actually thinking about trying to utilize on the back of this somehow, but it didn't really make sense. I notched this a little bit so the wire could come through, and there's no gap. I haven't tightened this all the way down yet. I still have 2 other threaded holes on the back of this, so if I wanted to put all that hardware in, I could. I don't feel the need. I think this is going to be totally fine. So I'm going to see what this looks like and see if this actually goes back in. But I mean, this looks pretty good for just using a factory piece without having to buy an aftermarket piece. There's a couple brands. I've seen them on Etsy for pretty cheap, but if you go online and just Google this thing, it's like $100-something bucks for this piece. So if I can use the factory one that, again, I barely use anyway, and spend $0 on a new bracket, then I'm gonna try it. So good news, this clicked right back in. I haven't reconnected any of the wiring or anything back there. I still got to put that dead plug in there, but I think this is gonna look perfect. This is actually once this is all buttoned down and everything's tightened up, this is going to be very solid, and it's using the factory location. Again, don't use any of those. It's kind of just an empty cubby. I keep some business cards and stuff in there, but they can just find another home. So I'm going to hit up the old YouTube University beforehand, but I think all that's going to be happening now is I'm going to be taking one of these 2 positives going to this breaker, and then the other positive to the battery, and then the negative is just going to go straight to the negative terminal on the battery. There's a switch on here for accessory and battery mode. I'm not positive which one I'm going to leave it on. I believe it just means you can have it so that it's either getting constant power or accessory power. So we'll just see what's going on with that. I'm going to just go through the user manual real quick because there's all sorts of stuff. I don't think I need most of these brackets or anything like that. This, I believe, is for the controller, the wireless controller, maybe. I got to just see what's going on for the next step. But everything's coming together. I actually just wired, or I sent the wiring for the switch panel through the firewall. And then I now have the panel actually installed in the truck. So, I mean, this is nice. Again, love the buttons. I'm done with touchscreens, dude. I just want buttons and switches. But yeah, I'm going to put this interior back together a little bit, and then I'm going to keep going. So I got this all kind of torn apart. The wiring is kind of short. So I have everything's kind of mocked up here. I got that breaker over there that I don't even know what this is for. This came with the kit. It doesn't really seem to line up the best with anything, but I think what I'm going to use it for is because of the wiring, just the way that the length of the wires are, and I don't really want to have to cut and splice anything new. This is actually going to just sit on that bracket. I'll explain in a little bit, but right now I'm doing the accessory. So under the controller here, there's actually hold on. Okay. Again, everything is a huge mess. The accessory is going to run to an accessory fuse. So this is actually the bottom of the cover for the factory fuse box. The gentleman that I was watching on YouTube, he actually tapped into EFI number 4 up here. It's a 15 amp fuse. So this is actually going to go to here. You're going to crimp this down, and then you're going to just put that fuse right in place of that one up there, that 15. All right, so I'm pretty much done with the panel. So I have it pretty buttoned up. I just did a test on one of the chase lights to make sure that everything works. So basically, under this cap here, everything's tightened down. I just got to clean up the wiring. This is actually going to look really nice when it's done. So here's what we got. Everything's mounted to the side of the truck. Like I said, I bolted that bracket in. This bracket, I kind of had to make it work, and it works fine. It looks a little weird, but the way that I have it right now, I can actually still access this. I was able to take this on and off with all of this still in place, which is great. So I have the positive from the panel going to the breaker, going to the positive terminal on the battery. We have the negative on the panel going down underneath and then just going right into the factory chassis ground right there. The accessory fuse, this is the fuse we were talking about earlier. This goes down and under into the box. This is the wiring from the chase light that I have to clean up. And then this is the wiring that's going through the firewall down there and into the panel, which again, came out great. I'm actually really happy with this. I have it in accessory right now. So there's actually a switch on this controller. You can switch from battery to accessory. You can kind of see it right there. So I have it in accessory so it's not drawing power constantly, but it is nice that you can just flip a switch on here and you can just run off the battery. So if I did want to leave some lighting on outside, I could do that. And I have battery protection in place so that I don't actually end up draining my battery by accident. So I'm going to just kind of button this up, and then I'm going to get to the scary part, which is going to be cutting some giant holes in the camper, which it's not the end of the world. I've cut a million holes in this thing, but this will actually probably be the biggest one, at least in a while, at least since the chimney. But yeah, these actually, I just did a test, like I said, and they look really good. So I'm going to just kind of center them on either side and just get them situated, and then I'll just go from there. So the lights came with these little rubber gasket type things. They're adhesive backed, it looks like. So I think what I'm going to do is use these as the template to kind of line it up. I got to just pick a spot. I'll probably end up lining it up with this bolt here. So somewhere in there on either side, and it'll be symmetrical. And then from there, I'll just trace the line and I'll just start making the cut. It's kind of a wonky cut. It's not a perfectly straight line. The back of this has a little bit of a curve to it, but I got plenty of room to wiggle with. And then I'm going to just use a Dremel with just a cutting disc, and I think it should cut through that aluminum just fine. So I got the locations where they're going to be mounted. Again, this is just like the gasket thing that's I'm probably going to reinforce with some Sikaflex or something. I don't know if I trust this little piece of foam to prevent water from getting in there, but I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to just do a quick measurement, make sure everything's symmetrical, but I think that looks pretty damn good. So all I'm going to do is take a paint pen, trace the inside of this line, and then just punch holes through that to accept the bolts. And that's it. I think this is actually gonna work out great. So we got paint everywhere, which is great, but that's gonna be covered anyway. So let's get cutting, I guess. All right, this was a nightmare. It's dark out. So what happened was I didn't realize there are support beams behind this. There's only 2, and guess where they are? Exactly where I wanted to put the lights. So this isn't wired. I'm actually gonna cut the hole a little bit. I'm gonna open it up a little bit more up here so that I can kind of shimmy this just the slightest bit. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but it looks great. I'm very happy with it. It's not bolted in or anything. I haven't put any Sikaflex or any sort of gasket or anything, but it's gonna look very nice. But that was a nightmare, dude. That took like way longer than it should have. I had to, luckily it's like aluminum on the inside, the support beam, so I didn't really have a good way to cut it. So I actually just took some pliers and started kind of bending it, and it just kind of bent out of the way. I don't think it's gonna negatively affect anything. I don't even really understand what it's doing anyway. I mean, it's definitely good to have some structure inside of here, but I didn't take anything out. I just took a chunk of the support out, but it's still 80% intact, so I don't see it being an issue. I'm gonna tackle this tomorrow because that was a pain. I'm gonna have to get more Dremel bits and kind of attack this a little bit more intelligently. But I'm gonna just clean up and get out of here. So I actually just did a little test cut. I don't know if you can see that in there. I used the wood bit for like 2 seconds and it sliced right there. So I don't even think I have to go get a bit, which is nice. This is gonna fit much nicer. This was really stressful yesterday just because it was at the end of the day and I thought it was gonna be quick, and then I found that beam under there and it became a whole other thing. But if I can do this with one hand. The thing preventing it from going any further is that beam, but it fits around the light really nice. So this is gonna look sweet once these are both wired up. So now I'm at the point where the major hole is cut and then the small holes on the side to hold the bolts are also drilled. So I took some Sikaflex. That's what they use in these campers for everything. I use Sikaflex for everything on this camper. I don't know how much it's gonna really help along this edge. I do have the foam piece on the back of it acting like a gasket. And then I just filled those holes with Sikaflex. So when you run those bolts through, it should spread it around nice. But I'm just trying to do everything I can to get water from going in here. All right, I skipped 50 steps because the boys are here. But so they're working, everything's sealed up. I'm pretty happy with how these sit actually. They look pretty symmetrical. So like I said, these are not too bright. I'm pumped that these aren't so bright. I was looking at like S2s. I got Baja Design stuff up front and they're too bright. I know people that have S2s in the rear and they look really cool, but I mean, if I was gonna be using them for reverse lights, if I had them on the bumper or something, I think it would make a little bit more sense. But let me just kind of show you what I got going on in here. Yeah, these are gonna be good, just nice little chase lights for when it's super dusty. And then, like I said, for camping, it'll be nice. So it's kind of a mess in here, but I just wired everything connected to here. And then, so these are the pigtails from the lights. Dude, I had to cut so much stuff. I had to notch into here. the positioning ended up being not the best spot, but it did work out. It was a lot more work than it needed to be, but I think it was worth it. This I'm going to just kind of clean up and tuck away. I still got to clean up the rest of the wiring. But yeah, that's it. This is actually a junk wire. I got to get rid of that. But this is the wire going up to the front of the truck. So I'm going to just clean up a little bit, and then I'm going to put that label on the switchboard and go from there. Got the dust light sticker. There was a couple that I could have used, but I thought the dust light was funny. I like the little picture on there. All right, well, that's it. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown. So all I did was wire up these lights. They're obviously off right now. Everything's buttoned up. I got the panel, all the blanks are in. So I got all these switches that I can add stuff to. So right now I have it in accessory power, so I can't turn this on unless the truck is running. I'm going to just kind of get used to it that way. And then it's nice being able to toggle back and forth between battery and accessory. So everything in here is buttoned up too. So everything's obviously under the cover. That mount is pretty solid. Everything's tightened down. This doesn't take up a ton of space in there. I think it actually looks pretty clean. I'm happy with how this came out. So I'm not going to go crazy walking through the features of this thing. They're very self-explanatory. It's pretty much just power. There's the brightness, and then there's the color changing. And then obviously just selecting each panel, it'll illuminate the top. There's a couple different settings where if you hold the brightness, you can actually it'll change the color on the indicator light telling you that it's on. It'll be red, I believe it was red, blue, green, and purple were the lights, and they all have a corresponding reaction. So some of them are, the red is if you press it, it'll stay on. Press it again, it'll turn off. The blue is if you press it and hold it, it will stay on, but the second you release it, it will disable it. And then there's a slow flash and a fast flash, like a strobe feature. So it's pretty cool. And then it has memory, so you can have everything preset to whatever you want. If you had lights that you were going to have as dedicated strobes, you don't have to mess with the settings every time. But yeah, dude, I'm stoked with these. These came out awesome, actually. This is going to be really nice when I go to add stuff in the future. So yeah, check them out. MicTuning, make it cool. And again, shout out to these Amazon recessed lights. I think these are going to work pretty great. But yeah, that's it for today, boys.